The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, UNU Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. This is 2AT Second Amendment Talk right here on Armed Radio. I am Daniel Sanders, and joining me as always is Rod Burks. Rod, how you doing this evening?
Hey, I'm doing well. Not a whole lot going on in the news, Daniel. But there are a few things that are pretty interesting.
Yeah, there are. It has been pretty quiet as far as Second Amendment's concerned. But we do have a couple of things to talk about, and we'll get into those. But before we do, as we always do at the start of every show here, we want to give a big shout out to the troops, men and women serving overseas and on the home front. We appreciate everything y'all are doing. Keep up the good work. Come home safe. We're all rooting for you here back home. So, and I'm also going to say I apologize for missing last week. Had some family issues come up that had to be taken care of. Life gets in the way sometimes. Yeah. So what's
Well, I just told everybody you were taking a much needed vacation.
Oh, if only that were the truth. I don't even know what is a vacation anymore. To me, a vacation is I'm not making money. That's what a vacation is to me.
That sounds terrible. Right. But hey, we're on vacation doing this radio show, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I hate that I missed last week's show, but like you said, it's been slow. There's not been a whole lot going on. But now this happened yesterday, I believe it was. February 24th. Of course, up in Virginia, everything's been going on up in Virginia here lately. And this is an article I have pulled up from the Washington Post, and it says, after killing an assault weapons ban, Virginia Senate panel advances 7 other gun control bills. So, when we talked about the assault weapons ban getting shot down, and you basically calling it a smokescreen, I'd have to say that was a very good call that you made.
Right, yeah. I noticed that there were several, and that everybody was celebrating the fact that one of them was shut down. But the fact that it's not the end of the fight. It was the free one. It was that 3-meter target that was you can't really miss. But yeah, the fight is still very much ongoing.
Right. Yeah. So. Like I said, this happened yesterday. The Senate panel advanced 7 of these 8 bills that were advocated by Governor Ralph Northam. Of course, as we've already pointed out, the assault weapons ban was shut down, and then they advanced these other bills. And I'm getting to here we go. It says on largely party line votes, the committee advanced measures limiting handgun purchases to 1 per month, establishing universal background checks for firearm sales, creating a red flag law to allow authorities to temporarily seize weapons from someone deemed a threat, and tightening gun restrictions for domestic abusers. So we're going to break these down here. So the first one, limiting handgun purchases to 1 per month. I don't really know what they're like. What are they really hoping to achieve with that?
Well, let's look back at prohibition. Limiting people to no liquor, no alcohol. Yeah, it doesn't work. And you don't necessarily need to buy the whole handgun to make. You know what I mean? I mean, you can buy the parts and make one yourself. There's always a loophole. Whenever they try to write in these nonsense kind of laws.
So, Yeah, like you said, you can buy the parts and build one yourself if you're savvy enough to do it, or if you're smart enough to pull up YouTube. Um, that I mean, and let's just say they cut out that loophole. Oh, well, you can't if you buy a gun, you can't buy parts for another gun for a month or anything like that. Okay, well, I mean, I haven't really seen as far as I know, you can still purchase a handgun in the state of Virginia that has more than a 10 round capacity, like California has or whatever. I don't think they have any restrictions yet in Virginia as far as magazine sizes go. So, I mean, somebody who's a really good shot or really good at doing magazine changes, one handgun's really all you need.
Yeah, it's interesting because the delegate Mark Levine, he said
Mark
that
Levine,
he
yeah.
was afraid. Yeah, yeah, that mass murder would be committed with the firearms that would have been subject to the bans, and that's why they want to push to prevent people from getting more. But interesting that in Virginia has only had two mass shootings in the last 37 years, and both of those were with a pistol, supposedly.
Hmm. Yeah. Of
But
course,
he
there
goes
was
on.
the
He doesn't let the truth get in the way.
right. And of course there was the shooting in Virginia Beach last year, I think it was. The well, they said he wasn't a disgruntled employee. He wasn't facing any kind of disciplinary action or anything like that. But I mean, he still went postal and took out what was it, 8 or 9 people with a handgun. Matter of fact, I even think it was a
Right, right.
revolver now that I think about it. So, I mean,
If somebody's with enough anger and a little bit of know-how, it's the gun isn't necessarily the it, you can't blame the gun. No matter what it was, it was obviously the shooter. But
right.
taking the gun, and we've said it time and time again, Daniel. And I know we're preaching to the choir, but keep preaching. The choir's listening. Guns are inanimate objects. Uh, you can't blame them for the actions of mental or just criminal minds.
Right. Yeah. Reiterating the same thing, it's a tool, just like a hammer, just like a screwdriver, just like a saw, just like an axe. And the individual using it determines how it's going to be used. Um, and I'm still just blown away by this one per month. I mean, you know, and I hope anybody listening out there does not take this the wrong way with me saying this, but you and I, Rod, we're both trained individuals. So we could, either one of us, my Glock 19 pistol is 15 plus 1. With 16 rounds, we could effectively take out at least 10 people. That's just with one magazine.
Right, 10 bad guys, right?
Yeah, 10 bad guys. Yeah, I hope, like I said, I hope nobody's taking that the wrong way. I hope they don't think I'm talking about going postal and, just wiping people out. But yeah, in a defense scenario, I've got a platoon of guys in front of me. There's 15 guys in front of me. I could take 10 of them out with one magazine. Well, I can effectively change out that empty magazine and replace it with a fresh one in less than 2 seconds and start sending rounds down range again and take out the other 5. So, I mean,
Right.
one handgun's all I need.
Here's whoa, that was loud.
That was loud.
Here's the real. Yeah, I heard it too. I wasn't sure if it was just me, but they don't care that it's we're going to limit you to one handgun a month. Because very seldom do I ever buy like if I've got a class coming up and I need more pistols for training purposes or whatever. I may buy a couple, but I've kind of built up my supply. But that's not
Right.
the point. It's never about what you see in black and white. It's what I've learned in my few years on this planet is it's not what it says, it's what it doesn't say. That is just the first step in controlling people. All right, first we get them to agree that hey, yeah, handguns are bad, and you don't need more than one a month, right? And I'm surprised. Next thing you know, it'll be oh, well, one a year. Oh, well, if you've bought one, you're good for the rest of your life. Yeah, I mean, you see how it's easy once you step over that precipice to fall down this path that is too steep to climb back up, because no politician will ever put their career on the line and stand up for fewer gun control laws. I mean, and I say that there are exceptions that prove the rule, but by far and large, politicians will pander to the people, give them free stuff and tell them what they want to hear. And none of them, well, I say none of them, few of them will take the hard line and really have the wherewithal to turn things around that are unjust. And this, so I've got a story, and forgive me, it's a little rabbit hole-ish, but I'll try to make it quick. One of the examples is registered sex offenders. I read a story about a 17. The incident happened between a 17-year-old high school girl and a 16-year-old high school boy, and they were caught in participating in actively or passively in oral sex, but because of the laws and the way they're written, she is now required to register as a sex offender for the rest of her life, for doing something in high school that it isn't, and I think in most people's mind doesn't meet the criteria of a sex offense. But because that's the way the law is written, that's what you've got to follow. This one gun a month, it's just the beginning. It's gonna taper and make it so inconvenient, almost impossible to own a firearm. And it's I'm telling you, folks, it's just the beginning.
Right. Yep, I agree entirely. So moving on to the next provision, establishing universal background checks for firearm sales. You know, maybe I'm just stupid. I've yet to get a clear definition of what they mean by universal background check, because to me universal means encompassing. Yeah, it's
Well,
one
it could
for
mean
all.
that they want to check Mars. They want to make sure that on Mars, nobody on Mars has any claim against you owning a firearm, and that you should have to wait until you get that response from somebody on Mars saying that you're cleared.
Yeah. 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 That's a good possibility too. But no, like I said,
Well,
universal
no,
to
I
me
mean because
is
there's already background checks. I mean, if you go
yes.
if you go to buy a firearm, you're filling out the ATF forms. If you have a CWP, then you've already been vetted, at least in the state of South Carolina. You
Yes.
still have to fill out the form. It's still documented. It's still recorded, and that retailer has to keep those records indefinitely. And if they ever go out of business, they have to surrender every single record to the ATF. I
Right.
recently looked into the rules of getting my own FFL, a federal firearms license. As a hobbyist retailer and gunsmith, right? Just kind of for the heck of it. And so I watched a lot of videos, and there's guys that have been like, yeah, I've done this for about 3 years, and I've been inspected 3 times by the ATF. So this is they already have a very thorough process in place for well, at least for retailers. Now, maybe what they're referring to is that no private sales from person to person, which how are you going to regulate that? I mean,
Precisely.
okay, so I mean, my local newspaper, or they have little classifieds. You can buy it from the gas station for $1 or whatever. I bought my last shotgun there, man. It was a great deal. But I couldn't imagine having to, all right, well, hey, meet me at my FFL and we'll do this transfer. And then, now they're making a little bit more money, which, I'm all about supporting local business, but
Right.
is it necessary? And then how are you going? One of the things they teach young Marine Corps officers is never issue an order you can't enforce. And I think that's what they're asking for. But with the intent of giving them carte blanche to say, oh well, where did you get this gun? If you can't show documentation, then it's an illegal gun, right? And then now they have you on gun charges, and now they're going to take away the rest of your rights. I mean, that's how this snowballs out of control.
Right. Um, yeah, like you said, there's already background checks for it. ATF Form 4473. And it's the same way in Alabama, like you said, it is in South Carolina. I have a concealed weapon permit. I've already had to go through a background check to get my concealed weapon permit. So if I go into pawn shop, gun shop, any kind of shop that sells firearms, and I go to purchase a firearm, all I have to do is present to them my concealed carry permit. I will still have to fill out ATF Form 4473, but I don't have to wait on them to call the ATF. I don't have to sit around and, okay, the ATF got it and there's a 3-day wait and all this other stuff. I don't have to worry about any of that because I've already passed a background check.
Right.
And even if I
vetted.
didn't have,
And,
yeah, and even if I didn't have the concealed carry permit, I have to fill out the form and then it has to be submitted to the ATF. Now, as far as private sales go, here in the state of Alabama, you can do a private seller to buyer deal like that. Like I can sell a gun out of my personal collection to Joe Schmo off the street. And the way I go about doing that, I'm sure I've said it on the show before, but I'm going to reiterate it. If it's somebody that I don't personally know, then I will meet them in a public location where I know there are video cameras surveilling everything. I will ask them to show me a copy of their concealed carry permit. If they don't have one, then I will write up a contract. I, Daniel Sanders, am selling this firearm, model number such and such, serial number such and such to Joe Blow from the street. The address is such and such, phone number such and such on this date, and then we both sign it.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I mean, I think that that's smart. But when it becomes a law, it now becomes a tool for you to be charged with. And I don't know if you recall, and I just looked up the date of the story back in May, the end of May of 2019. A New York man was charged with felony possession of a firearm by the district attorney. The firearm he inherited it from his father, and never went and did whatever, New York requires you to do to own a firearm, to license himself, because it's no longer a right. But he used it and to defend himself against 2 home invaders, and he killed the 2 men. And so they're charging him with a felony possession of a firearm, because he didn't have the right papers. I mean, for lack of a better term, that's what they're looking for. They want you to document.
So I wonder if, say he didn't use a gun, say he used a kitchen knife, for example, just throwing it out there, or a baseball bat. He grabbed a baseball bat out of his closet and killed these home intruders. I wonder what the outcome would have been. Well, do you have documentation to show that you can own this Louisville Slugger safely?
And pardon the pun, but you're knocking it out of the park, Daniel. Because what other rights do you have to literally show proof or licensing of? I mean, how much crap can you put on Facebook And I mean, I had this argument with my fiance today. It wasn't an argument; it was a discussion. But she was like, "Oh, well, the First Amendment, words don't kill people," and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, pump your brakes." Let's look at
Wait
Nazi
a minute.
Germany and see what words did. But it is our right. Nowhere in the United States do you have to demonstrate that you have some kind of logic, some reasoning, some purpose to speak, right? You don't have to prove that your church is a legitimate church. I mean, that all of these are protected by the First Amendment, but you don't have to jump through hoops and then light those hoops on fire and take this show on the road. Maybe you'll make some money, but the Second Amendment is under attack like no other, and I don't understand why so many people are so happy to wish away their rights, because it doesn't stop here. It starts here, and the reason it starts here is because this is the one that if you disarm people, you make it so they can't defend themselves. All of the other rights fall right behind it, and so that's why I think this is the line in the sand. This it is for me. That'll that's why I named my company 2A Training Group. That's why I'm happy to be on the show 2A Talk. The Second Amendment is and I understand it's not absolute, but it is worth defending.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I'm thinking now of a video that I watched when Trey Gowdy was a member of Congress, and they were again, the Second Amendment was under attack, but it was from the standpoint of, if you do something to get put on the no-fly list, then your Second Amendment rights automatically become chilled until you can petition to have yourself removed from the list, to show cause why you should not be on the list, and then have yourself removed from the list. Until you get off the list, your Second Amendment rights are chilled. And he was asking a woman, what other rights do we do this with? What about the First Amendment right? You can't become a member of the church until you get your name taken off of this list. Or what is it? The Fourth Amendment. You can't have an attorney until you get your name taken off of the list. Or the Eighth Amendment. I think it was the Eighth Amendment. We're going to subject you to cruel and unusual punishment until you get your name taken off of this list. There's no other constitutional right that we treat the same way as we do the Second Amendment in regards to limiting people of their right.
Yeah, and Virginia is no different. They talk about the red flag law. They've come to an agreement, from this article on Fox, I read it. If the measure passes, a person would not need to be charged with a crime or even accused of one for their gun for their gun to be taken away. They would then be granted a hearing within 14 days of having their firearm seized to determine whether they will get it back or lose it for a longer period of time. So that flips the script, because now you're saying that, okay, yeah, you're guilty until you can prove you're innocent, and that's not how any of this works. That's not how our Constitution was designed. We are the people. This is our government. This is wrong.
Right. Yeah, the presumption of innocence was lost in this country a long time ago. I mean, it's gone.
Right, and it's a slippery slope, though. I mean, once man, and that's I think any gun law is an infringement, and I know I've probably talked out of both sides of my mouth on some issues, but at the end of the day, I've got to side with that. I was talking about the heated debate I was having before the show with my fiance about. She was like, "Oh, well, next month, Americans will be able to print 3D guns legally," And I was like, okay, well, first of all, they're plastic. So if you know anything about guns, heavy barrels are used, in the military. Why? Because they send around downrange faster and they last longer. They resist heat, and so on and so forth. So if you've got this plastic 2-inch barrel or whatever, yeah, you're not exactly equipped with a destructive device, or something that can cause mass destruction. You've got a plastic gun, and her argument was like, oh well, any idiot can possess this. They shouldn't have one, and yeah, absolutely, that is a possibility. But how many idiots can buy a car and get drunk and drive and swerve and kill a van full of kids going to church?
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to take. That's why I stand on the side of any infringement, or any law, any gun control law is an infringement.
Right. Yep, I agree. So, now on to the next one. I I don't even really want to bring it up, but I'm going to. And the only reason I don't want to bring it up is because we've beat it to death. But we're going to talk about it anyway. Creating a red flag law to allow authorities to temporarily seize weapons from someone deemed a threat. Why? I mean, I get why,
Well,
but why?
It's become, the United States, the pussification of the United States, and I hate to talk about my fellow citizens that way, but look at the prison system, right? It's overflowing, it's underfunded, it's understaffed, and it's it's designed or expected to rehabilitate, but what it's used for, honestly, truly, is to put away people that we're mad at, not people we're necessarily afraid of, but people that hey, you know what, we're not happy with whatever behavior that has broken this law, so we're going to lock you up, whether county,
Yeah.
state, whatever. So now we're writing laws that basically make it, hey, you know what, I don't like the way you look. I don't like the way you look intimidating to me. So I need to make sure that you're that you're inert, right? I'm gonna make it so you can't defend yourself against a bigger fish, because I think you're a big fish.
Right. And, again, this goes back to the presumption of innocence. You are you're you're punishing an individual for something that they have not yet been convicted of doing. Like
Or even
the
charged with.
yeah, even charged with. Like I think he was in West Virginia. I think he was the school crossing guard, the old man, um, who was upset because the school resource officer leaves in the morning to go get coffee and donuts or whatever the hell it is cops eat nowadays. And he was talking with a friend of his in a diner and made the comment about how easy it would be for somebody to come to the school and cause a shooting because the school resource officer isn't there doing his job. And a waitress in the diner overheard what he said, misinterpreted it, and reported it to the cops, and bam, red flag laws got him.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous that we've now words, that should have been protected, right? Because he's making an observation. He didn't make a direct threat, but it's hearsay, right? Because the whoever the staff was, whether it's a waitress or whatever, felt compelled to report this, and instead of just investigating and saying, hey, is there any legitimacy to this? Yeah, it probably wouldn't have taken them long to realize that yeah, it was taken out of context, but hey, it's laws are not written in your favor. Seldom are
Yeah.
they ever.
Yeah. So I mean, I just again, it's we're doing away with the presumption of innocence. we're coming to take your guns away from you because somebody thinks you're a threat. And even though you've not been convicted of a crime, nor do we have any credible evidence other than these witness comments to say that you are a threat, we're still going to go ahead and take your guns away from you. So now,
I mean,
I'm not,
they're
when it comes to a court of law, up until the last few years, anyways, in a court of law, the burden of proof was always on the prosecution. It was not up to the defense to prove this individual's innocence. It was up to the prosecution to prove this individual's guilt. And that's gone out the window.
I'm telling you, this is the beginning. If they can make it so that you have to defend your right to, or you have to prove you're worthy of exercising a right, with firearms, just let's just start with guns. If they're successful with this, and it grabs hold and becomes a mass policy or way of making law and regulations or what have you, other things will fall behind, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so hey, you know what? Law enforcement doesn't need a search warrant. Hey, we'll come in and we're looking for illegal guns, but if we happen to find some marijuana, yeah, okay, we weren't here for that. The search warrant said we were here for guns, but we found this. Oh, and hey, you know what? You thought about committing this crime because you posted this on your webpage. Yeah, you're going to get charged for that too. You see how, man, this is bad. This is real bad.
Yeah. So the last one that they mentioned, tightening gun restrictions for domestic abusers. I don't know how much more tightened up you can get than illegal, which it already is. I mean,
I would like to. I would hope that they're referencing something that they have a point to that, because I agree. If you beat up on somebody that you love, or that you've taken a vow to take as your person, then yeah, you don't deserve a gun. You probably don't deserve your freedom. But then again, I mean, everybody has their day in court and due process. But
yeah,
I get that. I've heard stories. I've never experienced it of relationships going sideways and people resorting to violence. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what they mean though, but you've really got to quantify these things if you want them to be effective and to not be abused by the state or by people who are feigning victim.
Did somebody just die in the background?
No, that was the door.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I was saying, ATF Form 4473, there's already, for those of you listening who have never purchased a firearm, who have never had to fill out this form, so on top of having to give all of this personal information about yourself, such as your name, social security number, where you were born, all of this other stuff, there is 13 or 14 questions that you have to answer yes or no to. And they range from, have you ever been convicted for drug use? Have you ever been convicted of this crime? Have you ever been adjudged mentally unfit to stand trial by a court of law? All of these different questions. And one of them is, are you currently the subject of a restraining order, or have you ever been convicted of, I think it says, have you ever been convicted of domestic abuse? And if you answer yes to that question, 9 times out of 10, that's a disqualifying answer right there.
No, I believe it's 10 times out of 10. I hang out in my local gun shop, and I've seen people accidentally mark the wrong column. and depending on who's there, um, I mean, if it was somebody saying, "Oh, well, I didn't read," or they're like, "Yeah, I told the truth," whatever. Um, yeah, they're not they're not walking out of the store with that gun.
Yeah. Um, I'm actually going to get it just because I don't want to sound like an idiot now. Let's see. Okay. So it is question 11, sub question H. Are you subject to a court order restraining you from harassing, stalking, or threatening your child or an intimate partner or child of such partner? And then right below that, question 11, sub question I, have you ever been convicted in any court of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence? If you answer yes to that question, you're not getting a gun. Period.
Right. Either of those questions. I had a client that had a restraining order, and yeah, they were denied. They were denied purchase of a firearm.
Yeah. That
And
you know,
and the restraining order was on a neighbor. It wasn't even it wasn't a domestic relationship, but because um, yeah, I mean, so the rules are already very strict. Because what if well, what if the neighbor gets to the restraining order first and then goes down and buys a gun, and now one person's armed, one person's not. I mean, you know, what sense does that make?
yeah. Uh, yeah.
So
So I
so
mean,
and a lot of this has sprouted or at least planted the seeds, and maybe it's an offshoot of some other things. But the sanctuary cities and counties. Um, and I don't know if you've heard. There's a there was a county in Virginia, Northern Virginia, that was like, "Hey, we're we're petitioning to secede to West Virginia if you don't cut the crap with all these gun control bills." Well, it's not likely to happen. Virginia is gun counties where they're saying, "Hey, ATF, if you're going to enforce or infringe on people's rights, one, we're not going to help you, and two, we're not going to allow it to the extent that they can." Somebody was I think the local law enforcement, and I'm not speaking from a position of great knowledge on this, um, but from my understanding that local law gets the first the first right of refusal, right? So let's say the FBI is conducting an investigation, and there's somebody in the local law enforcement's jurisdiction. They may say, "Hey, I would like this information to kind of roll up with this other case." And that local law enforcement agency can say, "No, go pound sand." Most cases they're going to cooperate, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's less paperwork for me to do," because they were going to do it anyway. So I don't know. I don't know if, yeah. Again, I get on these rabbit holes and try to find my way out. But I was talking about sanctuary counties, and yeah, there's already so many laws. I think, yeah, the sanctuaries, yeah, it's a good thing.
yeah. Um, Now on the flip side of that coin, you know, all of these gun laws, gun control measures, and everything. Europe, to my understanding, is one of the toughest places in the world as far as countries go. It's one of the toughest places in the world to be able to get a firearm. England, France, Germany, all
Oh
of
yeah,
these
yeah.
places.
European gun laws, in order, obviously there's no rights, like we know them, but to obtain a firearm, you have to first get a ownership license, kind of like a vehicle registration or a driver's license. And this isn't a, "Hey, I want to get a CWP." This is, "Hey, I want to purchase one." And the applicants must be 18. They must demonstrate trustworthiness. Um, They must have personal adequacy. I'm not sure what that means. And they must have expert knowledge and necessity. Interesting. Self-defense does not satisfy the necessity criteria. So how do you, that's a pretty long list to try to meet. I don't know I don't know that I would meet all of that criteria. I don't know what personal adequacy.
Yeah.
I don't know how you measure that.
Yeah.
Expert knowledge. Well, who's the expert anymore?
Right.
And necessity. Well, I own a business where I teach it. So does that constitute? I mean, the fact that I want to defend myself should be necessity enough.
Right.
But interestingly enough, that despite this blanket disregard for people's rights, on Wednesday night, I think, well, this article says 9, but I believe you read there was.
Yeah, 9 people.
Oh, this article says 8. Sorry, 8. Yeah. So 9 people were regrettably killed, and 5 injured in 2 shootings in Hanau, Hanau.
Hanau, Germany.
It is in Germany. Yeah. So how did having all of this criteria, all of these applicants must meet, do a lick of good for those 9 people who were killed and those 5 people who were injured?
Yeah.
How do more gun laws stop violent crimes? I mean, I think everybody should just be happy and treat one another with respect and dignity. But part of that means not criminalizing non-violent conduct, like owning a firearm. That doesn't make you a criminal automatically.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a very, very tragic event that occurred over there. And, they're calling it right-wing extremism, racism, all of these things because he attacked 2 different shisha bars, hookah bars is what they are. Killed 9 people, injured 5 others, then went home. Or actually, I guess he killed 8 people, injured 5 others, went home, and then I'm guessing shot and killed his mother and then shot himself. And Angela Merkel.
Yeah, I'm curious. The UK is famous for being the thought police. So you can get a charge for basically stating your beliefs, right? Because what we enjoy under the First Amendment, they don't get that same level of respect. So they say this person had an opinion about. Oh well, we would say somebody has an opinion about an issue or a topic. They quantify as that makes them, extreme right wing or racist, or they play the race card whenever they can't explain the situation anyway else, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen a list of the victims. His mother was, I would assume, the same race, or at least half the same race that he was. So I'm not sure how that was racist. So I mean, obviously, this is deeper than the race card, but it is so typical for your left leaning to want to play that card in an effort to divert attention from the real issue, and that's
Right.
that they don't treat anybody with dignity and respect.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've shown now just recently within the last week that gun control laws don't work. And I know the opponents to yours and my viewpoint is, oh, well, this was just one instance. Well, guess what? It's one instance too fucking many.
You're right. Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's just like I said, it's a tragic event that occurred, and all of these gun control measures and everything, they don't work. Plain and simple, they don't work.
and I hate to be one that points out a problem without a solution. And so my recommendation, at least for us here, on this side of the pond, is to bring it to the front and not and do it in a neutral light, right? Don't do it in a right light or a left light, a red light or blue light. Let's do it in illuminate the issues, right? And really that's education. And I don't
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that we need to incorporate it into public schools, daily curriculum, but why can't it be, a class that students take for, maybe it's incorporated into another, and I'm not, man, I'm thinking about, I'm starting to sound like Bernie Sanders here, right? Like, so who's going to pay for this? And the costs are going to run out of control. And what are we going to take off of the plate of our already overburdened educators, who are, buying their own school supplies and, yeah. So I don't necessarily have the solution, but I I know what the right answer ain't, and that's treating inanimate objects as the perpetrator, as the antagonist. They're just inanimate objects. Hold people
Yeah.
accountable.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna get off of this because it's gonna piss me. We're gonna spend the last little bit of time. So as I've mentioned in the past, I've been in the market for a new pistol chambered in a 5.7 by 28 millimeter caliber. And as far as handguns go, unless there's something out there that I don't know about, um, there's only two companies right now producing a handgun in the 5.7 caliber, and that is FN Herschel and Ruger. So I've been comparing the two, and I actually have the spec sheets pulled up here uh, on both firearms. So both they're pretty much the exact same pistol, size, weight, everything. Of course, the FN is like 90% polymer. I mean, the slide, the receiver, everything with the exception of like the barrel and the internals is all polymer. The Ruger, a little bit more sturdy build to it. It's got a polymer lower with steel upper. Um, Both of them have windage and elevation adjustable rear sights, but what I like about the Ruger is it comes with the fiber optic front sight post, whereas the FN just comes with a standard blade front sight post. Um, and the FN,
Well,
or I'm sorry, the
although
Ruger.
and I'm not sure. Like, so I own the FN version, and mine
Mhm.
did come with a taller front sight blade.
Yes.
And so I put a suppressor on there, and I believe that's the reason for that taller front sight. So
Yes.
is that a feature that's with the Ruger as well?
Um, looking at it just at pictures, yes, the front sight does appear to be a little bit taller than just what a standard front sight on a pistol would be. May not be as tall. It's not the only thing the spec sheet is not giving me is the sight radius on the Ruger. Um, but on the FN 5.7 sight
Well,
radius
I would
is
imagine they're probably the same. Actually,
you're
I'm looking at two pictures, and the Ruger may be a little bit more because the Ruger already has a isn't it a couple thousandths of an inch longer anyway? And the rear sight is actually um, looks like it begins right at the very stern of the slide. If I'm looking at an accurate representation in this photograph.
yes, you are correct. So the rear of the front sight basically sits flush with the rear of the slide on the Ruger. And yes, barrel length on the FN is 4.8 inches. Barrel length on the Ruger is 4.94. Overall length on the FN is 8.2 inches. And on the Ruger, it is 8.65 inches. So yeah, do have a little bit more sight radius there. Let's see. Both of them have a 1
Yeah,
in
but I mean
9 right hand
that's
twist.
I mean, so 6 thousandths of an inch.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that would give you. Now, I did do a quick search, and something that I really like for my 5.7 is the threaded barrel. I mean, it doesn't come from the factory; you have to get it, aftermarket. So maybe it's not a fair comparison right now. Though that I can't find a threaded barrel for the Ruger version, which absolutely, like I said, that's not a fair comparison because it is a new gun. So you've got to
Yes.
give manufacturers a chance to reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
But that is,
Yeah,
it,
because I mean the FN 57's been on the market now for what, 20 years? Early 2000s, I think, is when it come out. And the
wow,
Ruger just came out within
you
the
say it
last
like
year.
that. It just hit me. You're like early 2000s, 20 years ago. I was like, no way, it's math is way off. But man, you were spot on. I feel like I'm getting old.
I know, right? Um, but obviously the biggest tipping point when it comes to any kind of firearm purchase or any kind of retail purchase at all for that matter is overall price point. So Ruger, well, I'll start off with the FN. On their website, FN, the MSRP of the FN 57 is $1,435.